this thing. Good morning. Welcome to Monday. Today is Mobile Monday. My name is Brent Schlenker. I am the Chief Learning Officer for Litmus, litmus.com. You can read all my blog writing craziness at litmus.com/blog. We do this blabcast, whatever we want to call it, every morning, Monday through Friday, in the 8 o'clock hour Pacific time. Now that Arizona has shifted, actually everybody else shifted. We stay the same, but that's a whole nother story. But anyways, welcome everybody. Hi, nice crowd this morning. Appreciate the support for wanting to talk L&D with me at 8 o'clock. So what is the latest? This was kind of a last minute thing because I'm trying to come up with branded days that kind of sound good. And I don't even know, to be honest, if mobile learning is even really a thing anymore. But I thought maybe that might be worth talking about. So sort of what do we mean by mobile learning? How many different types of mobile learning are there? Is it mobile performance support? Is it more like, well, now sort of the 360 video stuff kind of takes mobile to a whole new level. And I will say too that I think the idea of, I'm going to have to fix this. Very crazy. I feel like my face is like right behind my name tag. So video and mobile, I think, go very, very closely together, and I'll tell you why. So to have Mobile Monday be right after Video Friday, I think kind of works because our mobile devices now are powerful enough to also be not just content viewing devices, but also content production devices. So what does that mean for us in the corporate space when we try, when we create systems or ask our corporate people, employees, the people we train to kind of participate in the learning process? When we say we want to build a learning culture within an enterprise, part of that is allowing everybody to share digitally and share content, which means utilizing mobile devices to capture video, capture audio, capture pictures, and pushing that content out, as well as viewing and collecting content. But the mobile devices seem to be growing in their ability to do that more and more. And employees, I think, are starting to get a little bit more comfortable with doing that. So maybe even like 5 years ago or so, it might not have been something that everybody was really interested in doing, mostly because maybe the phones couldn't create a high enough quality. I don't know. But now everybody seems to be getting used to it. And I know the next generation of workers are way more used to it than us old people are. So, but we're trying. All right. So let me go back. Let me scroll through the chat really quick and read a few comments and kick off this conversation a little bit more. So Ajay, mobile is increasingly important. Quote, Gen Z consumers are digital natives, but even more so mobile first. They are twice more likely to want to shop on mobile than millennials. Agreed. Mobile is everything, says JD. Mobile design should also influence desktop other experiences. Yes, without question. Even if you don't support mobile, you should still design with mobile practices because your users do mobile constantly. Totally agree. Don't get me started about corporate L&D. There's a huge miss on not using a generally plentiful resource and org's employees. They're more than SMEs, they're talent. Yes, I would totally agree, Irby. I think we do tend to miss the mark. But let's see. What's a good way to approach this talent versus employee question? I think newer, younger businesses are taking that approach. I think older, more classical legacy style businesses are having a hard time making the shift to that, mostly because their leadership doesn't get it, because they've always done things for the last 20, 30, 40, 50 years the way they've always done it. Trying to figure out how to accept the people that work for you as talent as opposed to just an employee, I think is a hard shift to make. Ajay, read the South by Southwest article on Forbes, Generation Z, 10 stats from says. Oh, cool. I should. Is there a link? Oh, you got the link in there too. Awesome. Thank you. You can't isolate mobile from any other digital discussion. It overlaps, drives social. Yep. Video, etc. From a platform behavior perspective. Yeah, totally agree. I'm sitting in front of my 27-inch monitor using my, I know, right? So I've got I don't have a 27-inch monitor, dang it, JD. But I've got my little laptop here, which is kind of semi-mobile. I've got my iPad mini over here that I am logged into Blab on in my other account, just so that I can kind of monitor things. And then I have my iPhone. And I do most of my work, quite honestly, on the iPad mini and the iPhone. The laptop is just basically sits at the desk when I need to sit down and have a quiet space. But most of the stuff that I've been doing lately has been all done on my phone. Yeah, and it's all because of mobile, right? So I guess this is the idea of, what was it? 20 years ago when cell phones first came out, I remember when I had my first Treo. Anybody remember the Treo? Anybody have a Treo back in the day? It was a PDA. Was it a phone too? I think it was Wi-Fi, but I don't think it had, I don't remember. So long ago. But anyways, back then everybody knew this is the direction it was going in, but nobody really knew what it looked like or why we were going there or how, fast it was going to get there. I think we all knew that sooner or later we would have devices that were as powerful as the big giant boxes we had under our desks fitting in our pocket. So today that's what we have. Yeah, Don, I paid for mine too. Work didn't pay for mobile devices back in the day. Not at all. Not even a PDA. Unless I guess maybe salespeople probably figured out how to write it off or whatever. But yeah, wasn't me. I sported for my own gear, but even back then, no big deal. To see how much mobile is part of our lives next time, I'm guessing, you're at a conference. See how many people go to the bank. Oh, I know, right? Every conference has that, right? The epic long table full of old computers and monitors, and that's the email station, right? And you don't see anybody hanging around those things anymore. Yeah, those were, I'm surprised they still use those, but apparently they're still getting feedback saying that they're necessary and they like having them. So, yeah, it was interesting. Yeah, the Treo was awesome for meetings. Absolutely. So we've moved a long way from that device to today's device. So if we say that we should, let's talk about the whole mobile first thing. So what does that mean for us in the corporate space? Mobile first. What is that something we need to be concerned with? Hey, good morning, Ray. Irby was a BlackBerry guy. I know people who still are. Oh, thanks, Ajay. Good to see you, my friend. No worries, Ray. You can lurk. It's all good. Keep us turned on in the background. It's okay. Business needs to go where the people are. Yeah, absolutely. We shouldn't be asking our employees to learn a new tool just to do their learning. That we should be working towards a frictionless learning process. We should be taking away as many roadblocks, as many barriers as there is between somebody needing some knowledge and that person getting that knowledge. Absolutely. And there are security issues, absolutely, but I think IT takes care of that, or they should. And that's why we wait, right? That's why we in the corporate L&D space, we wait until we see what the business is doing, and then we put our learning there, right? Consider this. Consider how long mobile devices have been around. How many of the businesses that you work for or consult for actually have a legitimate bring your own device strategy in place? And the IT department has rolled it out and it's working great and it's secure and they have VPNs and everybody in the company knows how to use it. Oh, okay. I'm missing part of the question here. I don't know BlackBerry, but if I were still working in corporate land, I'd still miss. Oh, the BlackBerry. Yeah. We miss by not triggering natural user behaviors. Yes. What do you mean? Expand on that a little bit, JD. What do you mean by missing triggering natural user behaviors? I think I know what you mean, but add a few more lines of clarity there. Oh, they actually gave you a choice, huh, Shannon? That's interesting. I use information in one way while not at work. Then I go to work and I have to develop a different set of behaviors. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. Which is horrible, right? Hey, Shannon, I will absolutely let you jump on in here. Hello. Good morning.
Good morning. Sorry, I had you in the background while I was doing some work, but now I'm free.
Yeah, okay. You're done with your work. Done with the real work now. This is work. This is work.
It is work. It is work.
We're not getting paid, but you know, this is our personal development time.
It's brain payment.
There you go. I like that. Somebody take note of that. I like that, brain payment. That works for me. Yes, there is. So let me get back to what JD's comment was talking about. It's all good stuff. So the fact that there is the mainstream internet and how we all work and function in our lives and learn and improve our performance and share. And then we get into the workplace and the workplace hasn't really been able to catch up. And it kind of puts the brakes on everything and is actually more of a hindrance than a help, I think, to productivity, which is a little bit frustrating for everybody. But I think it's interesting. So historically, you used to get a job and be really excited about that job because they had all of the cool computers. Even before my time, they had the mainframe, they had access to the computers. You got a job hoping that they would give you a desk and a workstation, a big giant tower computer with a little tiny monitor and right? And you had you know, and there was a printer somewhere in the building that you could send stuff to. And it was, you know, so awesome to get to go to work and have access to all that technology. Now it's totally flipped, right? It's like, I don't even want to go, you know, most of the time. I guess it's probably changed a little bit now, but it's just like when you go into the office, it's all of a sudden you can't use all the same tools that you're used to using. You know, yeah, right, JD? Today you wish your job had the gear you have at home. It's so cheap. It's so accessible. Bandwidth is so good. Here's the part that has always confused me. So maybe this doesn't have anything to do with mobile, but have any of you tried to implement video of any type within the corporate confines behind the firewall, and the IT department has said, we don't have enough bandwidth to do video internally? And I think to myself, how in the heck is it that YouTube can do it just fine to the world, and you guys can't figure out how to push video to a couple thousand people? I don't understand.
Well, you know, my frustration was always with the last couple of companies that I worked for worked in the same way, where if you achieved certain levels of performance, then you got a tool, you know. So it was like, okay, so salespeople, once you achieve this matrix, then you can get a smartphone. And I'm like, what? Why are you now giving them a smartphone? Tell me why that's a prize. So because then they can do this or they could do that. Well, why don't you give them that now?
Yeah.
So maybe they could perform better now. And that was always such an epiphany type of idea for organizations. It was like, why are we giving them tools to do their jobs as a prize for doing their jobs? Doesn't that become, you know, the definition of insanity?
You know, I would venture to guess that that's sort of a hangover from the legacy of technology, because email was that way, right? When email first came out, only top executives got the corporate emails. You really had to have a legitimate reason for the IT department to give you a corporate email address. And then when the internet, actual like browsing and all that started getting really big, then it was only the executives that got free access to browse the internet, because good Lord, if you were browsing the internet, you weren't doing your job, obviously. So we can't just give everybody web access willy-nilly, you know, and all that stuff ended up changing, right? It all integrated and became part of the work that we do. So it's just a trend that we'll see, I think, with all technologies.
Well, I see less and less of it, and JD is making some good points here that you know, it is an old training paradigm, you know, where they believe that only the best got the best, and subsequently then the best generates the best, and we all know that that's not necessarily true today. And I see in the conversations that I have, I see less and less of that paradigm, you know, but I still think that L&D is sitting back and waiting for others to kickstart it. You know, we should be the ones kickstarting it. And a lot of times in my experiences, I found that if L&D made a suggestion, then the technology had to catch up. Fortunately for me, I worked for, you know, a very open-minded IT guy. So I would go and, you know, knock on his door and watch the look come over his face when he knew that I had an idea. It's like, okay, what do you want now, Shannon? But it always pushed the envelope. So in order to do this learning initiative, we need to have this technology in place, whether that be mobile or video or bandwidth or whatever, you know. So I think still L&D is not having the important conversations that they need to have with the business to make sure that they have the information or the technology needed to expand the learning applications and beyond, you know, e-learning or Captivate or Articulate or, you know, any of those other sorts of things. We're just talking regular usage, you know, or end user generated content.
Yep. Yeah, Don, Don is even mentioning back in the day, one company said we could share workstations and computers because we traveled. I remember the traveling workstation And Irby mentioned our time together at Intel as well. Yeah, I mean, most of my legacy knowledge of IT and how computer stuff gets done comes from my 10 years at Intel. But yeah, I mean, when Intel first opened up the internet for everybody, there was no such thing as a firewall. It was just open. And,
just did it.
Yeah, it was interesting how they did it, but it was cool too. I mean, it was they as frustrating as it was at times to get certain technologies and whatnot, I will say that they were pretty good about being early adopters and very good at it. Probably more so today than they were back then, because one of my favorite examples back in my early days of giving presentations and talking about back when we called it Learning 2.0.
Oh, right. Or Web 2.0. What? Yeah.
Yeah, I remember my favorite example was a guy at Intel that cranked up the first internal wiki. And it just kind of grew and grew and grew and grew. It was totally organic. It grew and became this big thing until he started it on a random server in one of the IT rooms. And pretty soon it just became so big and so popular, and so many people were referring to it, to learn and to get content, and people were sharing to it and everything, that IT finally took it over and formalized it. And now I think their wiki is still viable, but I should ask some of my friends that are still there and just see if it's changed at all, if they converted completely over to social or not. What's up, Mark?
Tiddly Wiki.
Oh yeah, I used that.
Very cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah, Tiddly Wiki is, and they're just now making it more accessible.
Cool. Yeah, there was one PB Wiki also.
Right. Mm-hmm.
They originally called it Peanut Butter and Jelly.
Right, Peanut Butter and Jelly. And I love that.
Yeah, it was good. I mean, all that stuff, it was so good.
Actually,
the
Tiddly Wiki is the creator of the wiki, the original wiki, and the Tiddly Wiki is another personalized wiki.
Yeah.
So that you can track, and it gets very deep. And the Tiddly Wiki is going there. Really nice.
Yeah, what were you saying, Shannon?
Say, PB Wiki is also expanded. They've expanded into more other collaboration tools, project management and such like that.
Yeah, they've become quite a nice SaaS product for sure. I don't really hear about them much anymore, but I know they still do exist.
And it's still, and you know what? And I just used one of their products, and it's still really functional. It's still a really good product, So I don't know why they're not making more noise. I think their marketing team is falling down on the job.
JD, you're cracking me up, man.
Yeah, Snack 2.0. I'm all for that. Were you got some of that to share?
Yeah, right. I was having Coffee 2.0 this morning.
Coffee 2.0.
Touche. All right, let's rally this back around to mobile, and what's going on today with mobile. Maybe we should do this. I think we're all. I don't really see anybody here in our blab that this is new to anybody. So where is it going? Let's go there. Let's have that conversation amongst us experienced L&D folk.
I'd like to see us take more advantage of app creation. Yeah, I think that if we can throw an app on, one of these little devices, then I think a lot of our problems would be solved. One of the, I was just consulting with a group just last week, and they asked they're doing equipment maintenance training. And they said, well, what can we do to help our people out? I said, create an app for it. And then, so here's your app. You click on the machine that you want to fix. It comes, you have different decision trees that go through it, and it leads you to a series of conclusions. So you can fix something right then, right now, and move forward. And I think that if we could make deeper use of that, then I think that, wow, the world would be on fire. I really do. It's underutilized.
I know, and it's interesting. So, does it like when we say that, does that mean we want to put courses? Each individual course is an app, or
No, I think it's a
is there
resource.
a different approach? Just a resource,
I don't see courses. Who wants to watch a course on their phone? For God's
right?
sake.
Well, I just want to throw it out there and make sure we were clear.
I have trouble seeing enough as it is. I don't want to have to squint into my phone to watch an e-learning course. But to me, and that it could be just my opinion, to me, mobile is about resource. So, and that's really, if you think about it, if we go back to JD's comment earlier, which
Yep.
is the natural behaviors of people. And the natural behaviors of people right now, anyway, is that they're going to pick up their phone to look something up, right? You're going to Google it, you're going to YouTube it, right? So I think that if we could just get away from, slapping a course on a phone, again, the world would be a better place with rainbows and butterflies.
Yeah, no, it's not going to happen like that. But I like to think of it too as JD makes a great point. Mobile equals access, and I was going to make a similar point, but that puts a much finer point on it. But the idea that it's not just access to content that you get with mobile devices, and you get it with laptops and browsers and social media and stuff like that too. But the idea that you can access people. Right. And I can reach out. I can reach out to other people. I can reach out to other, content. I can search and I can share. So I think it's not just this idea. I think when we talk about mobile, I think we're talking more about that type of why it's important, the access, all that kind of stuff, more so than it is just the content. However, content is one of the things that we're asked to do constantly within the corporate professional realm of corporate training, learning and development. Excel Radio, by the way, that's what we're talking about here. Corporate training, learning and development professionals, leaders in this particular industry.
Well, yeah, but I still think that people are going to watch. They'll get an announcement, again, perhaps via whatever LMS app that they have on their phone. They get an announcement that a course has been launched. People are going to bookmark that, and they're going to go home or to work, and they're going to watch it on their laptop. They're not going to watch it on their phone or maybe they might watch it on a tablet, maybe, but and it really depends on how they're using their tablets. So I see a lot of people using that Surface, a lot for work purposes. I do a lot of workshops, and I see that Surface pop up more often than I see an iPad nowadays. So, but I do think that that's really the involvement, is that they get that announcement, they go back to their laptops, and they complete the course. I don't see people completing courses via mobile.
Yeah, I think JD's got all the right words for all this.
Well, JD always does.
He's always dialed in.
Whenever a chat pops up and JD appears, you just want to sit back and say, whatever he says.
Yes, whatever JD says, I agree. We'll just be your retweet machine, JD, okay?
And I think that it's, I think we just forget the fish where the fish are, right?
Yeah.
So that's really what it's all about. So what are people doing? How are they using it? How are we accessing it? And if there are people there, let's not create new ponds.
And we do have to agree, or at least accept the fact that there are some workplace scenarios where those workers don't have mobile devices. They're not
right.
They're at least if they do, it's probably a much older device, and it's not going to be able to handle the same types of media that a newer smartphone can handle. And so those are issues for a lot of people still to this day. And so I think that's why it's important that our industry and professionals in our industry still, instead of saying, the tool is literally what I want to engage in, and I'm so excited about mobile because I'm going to create all this cool stuff because I saw somebody else do it, we still have to be very cognizant of the fact that we need to do an analysis of our audience and just figure out how it is that they consume content. And if they don't have mobile devices, or maybe they're doing a manufacturing job where they don't even have access to a desktop, at least nearby. Maybe there's one that they all share over in a break
Right.
room or something, but that adds a whole different level of how you're going to deliver training to these folks, and the process, having to work with management to say, okay, send this group in now to do the training and then bring them back
Right.
out on their shift, understanding shift changes and all that kind of stuff. There's a lot more about, and this is something we should probably have a blab conversation about, is understanding the workplace better, instead of just saying, we know people learn best this way and this is the way we're going to drive, our solutions. We should be saying, how does the business work?
Right.
How is it currently functioning? How can we fit what we do to the best that we can into that environment, knowing what we know about how learning works, the solutions, the technologies that are out there to help solve some of these problems. I think we're very quick to pull the trigger on new tech just for the sake of new tech, without first thinking, oh my gosh, how are we actually going to deliver that? And how is that going to fit into everybody's work lives?
Well, I think that a lot of that is because we don't do the proper analysis up front. What looks shiny and new and awesome to me, as you said, may not work within my organization because of whatever technology needs. And unless I am a real business partner with IT, I don't know what that is. So that means then that I'm creating something that half the organization can't use, or it would be difficult to use. And unless we're really, when we talk mobile specifically, and you're right, because it's cheaper for whatever reason, right now there's still a bunch of people out there with iPhone 4s or what have you, so you have to design to that. And it goes back to what is the simplest way, what can we get away with from a technology perspective? And I think that goes back to a certain degree, to the comment that I made earlier about making apps versus programs.
Yeah.
Because, their apps will work on most any phone, and as long as you make them device agnostic, then you're all right. So it just takes a little bit of work and some upfront analysis, is knowing what your organization can handle.
Right. And
we fail to do that.
I don't want to miss some of these great comments going by. So talking about design thinking and systems thinking, and all of that plays right into this conversation, I think, Shannon, right?
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. And we don't do our homework enough. We really don't. We go to all of these conferences and we come back with, oh my God, look what we could do with Google Glass. It's like, yeah, well, one person in 1,000 has a Google Glass. So you wasted all that time and effort. But let's concentrate with what you can do within your organization.
Yeah, I think so. I have to, for those of you that will be watching this on video later, or that are watching this on video later, I just have to read JD's latest comment. Mobile is also an awesome example of failed L&D common sense.
Absolutely.
How can we use mobile to support learning and performance? ? And then in all caps, how do you use your phone right now? Do that. And I could not agree more. But it's good.
Yes.
It's always fun to have somebody say it, right? And actually expose sort of I'll try to be as politically correct as I can, expose the mistakes of our legacy industry, the legacy of our industry. I don't know. Or our slow ability to change with the technology and the times. Maybe that's a better way to look at it.
No, it's our fear of confrontation is what it is. So if
that's a good way to look at it.
It is, because like Don said here, it's not just that L&D fails, it's leadership, management, et cetera. No, it's not. I respectfully disagree with that. I think that leadership and management have a paradigm in their heads that they go to. And because L&D does not have the huevos, if you will, to go and challenge that belief and to drive it forward. So leadership and management, they work within the confines of what they believe or what they know has worked, and they've seen it work in the past.
Yeah.
So now what is L&D doing to step up that conversation to say, okay, well, I understand that that's worked in the past. How about if we try this, or what happens if we do that? So we we end up being, because we're so used to being the nice guys, we're, you know, the bobblehead, smile and nod people. So we need to break out of that, so that way leadership can, you know, trust us to take stuff to the next level. Otherwise, why fix what's not broke in their mind?
Right.
You know,
but yeah,
so,
Don makes a great point too, rushing to use a tool, which isn't the way to do things. But I'll tell you, I've seen this happen in other parts of the business before too, that it's not just, I think it is an enterprise-wide issue. It's not just L&D. I sometimes have a tendency to lean too hard on our industry and try to push us a little bit too hard, or maybe reprimand us for not being any better than we are. But I don't think it's just us. It's other departments struggle with the same thing, right? They want,
right.
We can do our accounting better if only we had a better tool, if only we had a better accounting system. So let's go out and buy a big enterprise accounting system. Or manufacturing could do their job better tracking inventory if they had a better, you know, tool to track their inventory, you know, and everything else. You know, it's just, I don't think it's just us. I think it's a legacy problem that's part of just the corporate experience. And that's why I think one of the things, JD and I had this conversation on Friday, that I think, you know, there's so many people in our industry that are doing our job, that are doing corporate training, that are in L&D departments or having some sort of training function that they need to perform. And they're just doing it. They're just getting the job done. And those aren't the people that are hanging out at, you know, Training Magazine conference, online learning conference, any of the other conferences that are out there, and hanging out with us in places like this, right? We're in a bit of a vacuum, and
right.
There is this massive community of working professionals that do training to some extent, but they're just getting the job done. And they're because they don't have the legacy baggage that we all have, they're just getting the work done, right? And they're just doing it. And they're perfectly happy saying, hey, I'm going to create a video and put it up into this learning management system that's so easy to use. And oh, by the way, that gets delivered to mobile devices. Great. That's mobile enough for me. Let's do it. You know?
You know, in some cases, that's not necessarily a bad thing.
That's what I mean. That's what I mean. I'm saying it's a good thing. I'm saying it's nice. I guess it's not really a good thing or a bad thing. It's just the reality that we live in.
It is.
And I think
people have to get the job done.
Yeah,
they've got to do it.
Yeah, we need to expose that. And I think conversations like that aren't happening enough. I don't think there are enough of these types of conversations happening. And I like to think that it's our fault. Because we aren't, or at least those in control of the many of the conversations aren't allowing those conversations to be had. It's sexier to have a bunch of sessions on mobile devices and on articulate storyline and how to make better Captivate stuff and how to do all that stuff. That's the sexy stuff that sells better. But the real conversation, if we really want to be value added in our industry and to start to push things forward, is to look at these people who aren't in our industry but yet are doing the work that we claim to be good at, and watch how they do it, because they're obviously getting the work done in ways that we think is either bad or we've just never thought of. So I definitely think there's this gap that needs to be closed with, all of us in that industry.
No, I agree. I agree with you.
I think Adam has a great point. We created eLearnified PowerPoint prezos because that's what instructors worked with. We can't mobileify e-learning because that's not how people consume content on mobile.
Right.
Correct. I think to a certain extent, though, there are certain elements of what we create as learning professionals that can be delivered to the mobile device successfully because people are using devices in that way. So for example, I watch YouTube videos all the time on my mobile device, and there's no reason why any of those YouTube videos can't be educational. you know,
Right.
and actually most of them are. I wouldn't be watching it if I wasn't learning something, you know, and figuring out how to do it. And I think there are certain types of infographics that work well on mobile devices. I think like SlideShare has done a fabulous job of creating an app that allows you to go through somebody's SlideShare. And obviously not all of those SlideShare presentations are created for mobile devices, but for what it is as a tool, I think it's great. And how come no e-learning, you know, people created that tool? If we are the ones that created, you know, animating the click next button to run through a PowerPoint presentation, and then you've got, you know, we did the best we could with the tools that we had, but then a tool like SlideShare comes along and does it better, you know?
Right.
I mean, you know, but I think it's all because they approach it from a different angle, right? They approach it from a user interface, user experience perspective. They approach it from what do people want, what's going to be the easiest thing to do. And I don't think we tend to do that very well.
Well, no, but I think that all of this conversation leads to using mobile as a resource. You know, so I'm using it to source video. I'm using it to source SlideShare. I'm using it to source YouTube, you know, so it's a resource. So let's design the learning to be a resource, not a rote machine.
Yeah.
You know, so, and it's developing training with the end in mind, right?
Yeah.
What's our goal? What's our purpose of this? And if it's to give people necessary information, let's put it onto a platform that they already use.
Yeah.
You know, so, and in that case, it's whatever device that, you know, your organization has decided upon. So, you know, I just don't think sometimes that we think enough about the end result.
Yeah.
You know, so, and that is I think that's problematic. And why hasn't L&D thought about that more? I don't know. If I had the answer to that, well, probably wouldn't be here. So, I'd be in the Bahamas.
Yeah. So Adam has a good point, and I want to always restate this particular point. So he says, L&D is obsessed with interactivity, but I'm not sure it provides value since millions are happy to learn from linear YouTube videos. Oh, I read that wrong the first time. So I do agree 100%, but I will make the same comment. I don't think all things should be video. When I talk about video and people watching YouTube and things like that, I'm not advocating that everything we should do should just go be like YouTube. I'm just saying that I think YouTube is one medium that we know our users are used to, or at least we can take a pretty good guess at and say, yeah, if these people are mobile savvy, they're probably capable of watching videos in the same way that YouTube works. So if you have an app that at the very least, launches a video in the same way that the YouTube app launches a video, people get that, and that then becomes a frictionless experience. If you force it through some other channel and there's more clicks, or you're trying to play, this is my craziest pet peeve, you're trying to play a video inside of Captivate, or play a video wrapped up inside of an Articulate thing or whatever. And it's like, so now you got to go through one interface, your phone, to get to another interface.
I know.
Made, to then try and watch this video and then wonder why it doesn't work, because it's got, 3 different layers of
wraps on it, right?
That it's trying to convert to or whatever. And it's just a nightmare. I mean, I've also had conversations. So it's not just one medium that I'm talking about, but it's all the mediums, right? I mean, today's technology has made it so easy to, let's just say, for example, this was an educational webinar that we were doing, right? There's plenty of ways we can slice and dice this and make it available to people in many different formats. We could have this whole entire thing transcribed and all of a sudden have a text version of what we've just done. We can pull out just the audio and have a audio only podcast version of this recording. We can post the YouTube video, the whole video, the audio, the whole 9 yards it gets saved on Blab, and now the chat and the video stays connected. We can take that video and or audio, put it into an editing tool, edit it down to just the really great nuggets, and now we have a mini version of it that we could push out to people. So I think that the idea of there's only one solution comes from our legacy as well, right? Does anybody remember the Hanifin and Peck guide back in the day? This was my very first project in graduate school, was to create an interactive version of the Hanifin and Peck guide. And basically all the Hanifin and Peck guide was a matrix that helped you do media selection. It was the Hanifin and Peck media selection guide. And so there was all them different types of media across the top, and along the side was all of the different types of objectives, learning objectives, and different types of activities and things like that, and what your audience was like, all that. And so based on that matrix, you should be able to figure out what's the one best medium that you should use to select to create that training for. And I think that totally gets blown out of the window today in today's technology environment, when you're able to so quickly produce multiple different media of the same content.
Well, I think Ray made an excellent point way back in the comments here, is that he says that interactivity is actually in the head of the users. And I think that is so true.
It's a great way to look at it. Yeah.
Yeah, it is, because what I consider to be interactivity and what you consider to be interactivity are a couple of different things. It's kind of like reading a text message, right? We each have a different tone of voice in our heads when we go through it. So I think that's a great. So that's a great thing to keep in mind.
Yeah. So let's take that one step further. So is that interactivity or is that engagement? Is the engagement all in the user's head, or is it the interactivity that's in the user's head?
To me, it's both. What do I consider to be interactivity? For me, it's this sort of thing. This is interactivity to me. And then being able to flip through the comments, that's interactivity to me. Although other people may consider it, that's as if I'm working and listening to you, I'm engaged by what you're saying. I'm not necessarily interacting with the screen. So now I'm working and I'm typing and I'm hearing you off the side of my head. So now, but I'm still engaged in the conversation. So I think that it's two sides of the same coin almost.
Yeah, they're definitely connected. There's definite overlap. Irby makes a great point here, and I just looked at my time and realized we are approaching the 9 o'clock Pacific time hour pretty quickly. But Irby's comment was, don't do for learners what they can do for themselves. And I think
yes.
Good
one, Irby.
It's a great it's a great point. It's something that we struggle with as an industry. One of the first non-e-learning books that I really got connected to back in the early days of the Web 2.0 stuff was, I can't even think of the author's name now, but he had, it was a really easy read, really small book, but it was called Don't Make Me Think. And it was so true. The whole premise was,
it's my life motto.
Yeah, you've got to make it's a frictionless process that we have to create. We cannot, our interfaces that we design. He was a user interface guru guy, and we can't create interfaces that complicate things. The more we need to take away more of the roadblocks than add them. And so to keep everything as frictionless, back in the day it was, we need to reduce how many clicks it takes. So the most of the book was around designing a web interface with the most minimal amount of clicks. But that applied back then to what we did with e-learning. It applies today with taps, swipes, whatever. I'm not really good at it, but I love using Siri and other voice command things. That's incredibly frictionless. Siri, what are the top headlines for the news today? Or what's the Amazon's thing? What's her name?
Alexa.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, Alexa, what's going on today? What time is it? What's the temperature? You know, I mean, that's about as frictionless as you get as far as interfacing with technology goes. You know, so, and somebody's mentioning John Maeda. Now I'm trying to go back through and figure out.
I love his stuff.
Yeah, he's awesome. Now I can't even see where it was.
That was by Ray. Ray said it. Ray said, we need to deliberate reduction for simplicity.
There we go, for simple learning. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. All good stuff. Well, anyways, yeah, we're coming up to an end here. So, Shannon, why don't you tell us where people can find you, because you've been so nice to hang out with me today.
Oh, well, thank you. People can find me at learningrebels.com. You can find me on Twitter at @stipton. You can also find Learning Rebels Facebook.
Outstanding. Thanks for jumping in on video. I know for everybody it's kind of a new thing, but appreciate it. Mark, always a pleasure to have you jumping in on the video too, my friend. Where can people find more of you?
elearnguy@gmail.com.
Oh, okay. Throwing the Gmails out there. It's all good. So, yeah, I did a late blog post last week. That's still a good one. You can find at litmus.com/blog. And we do this every day, 8 o'clock Pacific time on the Blab platform.
The Blab.
Talking L&D talk. What should Tuesday be? What's
Taco Tuesday.
What is it?
Taco Tuesday.
Taco Tuesday? No.
Taco Tuesday could be anything goes.
Oh, there we go. Just throw it out there. All right. I'll see if I can come up with something great. But anyways, thanks everybody for hanging out with me. This is always a blast, always very engaging. Thank you very much. And we'll see you tomorrow morning.
Bye.
See you, everybody.